I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who kept secrets from her husband. But that's how these stories often begin, right? We insist we aren't that kind of person. And yet, there I was. I believed in love, loyalty, and the quiet comfort of a steady life. For 12 years, I was proud of my marriage to my husband, Daniel. We were the dependable couple, not flashy, not dramatic, solid, grounded, ordinary in a way people admired from afar. But sometimes, ordinary isn't enough to hold a person together. I learned that the hard way. Daniel and I met in college. He was the classic good guy, steady, thoughtful, a little shy. He wasn't the one who turned heads, but he had a warmth about him, a steady lighthouse on a foggy night. I fell for that. Hard. While others dated athletes and dreamers, I chose the man who remembered my coffee order and walked me home after late study sessions. We married a year after graduation. Life picked up quickly. Jobs, a mortgage, 2 kids, and a dog named Cooper. We built a life that looked beautiful on the outside and felt comfortable on the inside. But comfort can sometimes become a cage. It didn't happen all at once. Like a crack in a window you don't notice until the cold air starts to creep in, change came slowly. Daniel didn't become cruel or distant. He was still kind, responsible, good with the kids. Yet somehow we stopped truly seeing each other. He came home from work exhausted, his mind still somewhere else. I went through the motions: breakfast, laundry, school runs, dinner, dishes, sleep, repeat. I told myself it was just a season, that we'd find our way back. But weeks became months and months became years. I tried to talk to him. Gently. I asked, "Do you ever feel like we're just roommates?" He would smile, tired, and say, "It's just been a long week, babe. We'll plan something fun soon." But that soon never came. Then, my friend Marissa suggested a book club. "Something just for me," she said. A break from the endless routine. So, Thursday nights, once a month, I joined a small group at a local bookstore cafe. That's where I met Jack. Jack was an odd fit, a single man in his mid-40s, divorced, quiet. He wasn't particularly handsome, but he was attentive in a way few people are. He listened, not just waited to speak. He noticed things about books, about life. At first, it meant nothing. It was nice to be heard, that was all. Or so I told myself. One night, after a spirited discussion, I stayed a few minutes longer. Jack and I drifted into a conversation about life, about feeling invisible. He didn't pry, he simply listened. It became a pattern. After every meeting, we'd linger, talking quietly. Always appropriate. Always safe. Yet underneath, something was beginning to grow, a seed pushing towards sunlight. I didn't tell Daniel about Jack. Not because anything had happened, but because I knew how it would sound. Because deep down, Jack had started to occupy my thoughts beyond Thursday nights. One evening, a thunderstorm hit. Jack offered me a ride to my car. It felt innocent. Yet sitting there in his car, the quietness wrapped around me differently. He asked, "Do you ever miss the quiet?" And I whispered, "I miss being seen." That ride was only 7 minutes. But when I stepped into our living room and saw Daniel asleep on the couch, remote slipping from his hand, a loneliness more profound than I'd ever felt washed over me. I told myself it would never happen again. But 2 weeks later, it did. The conversations deepened. Still appropriate, but deeply emotional. Jack asked me the kind of questions Daniel hadn't in years. What makes you happy? What do you dream about? Who were you before all this? He noticed when I wore my hair differently. When my laugh was a little too forced. When my eyes lingered on the sunset outside the cafe window. And I, in turn, began hiding small things. Not mentioning Jack. Keeping my phone closer. Feeling guilty not because of what had happened, but because of what was quietly blooming in my heart. The guilt was a constant shadow. I hated the secrecy, but I also craved the connection. I remember the night it shifted completely. Another Thursday. Another lingering conversation. Jack looked at me, truly looked, and said, "You don't have to pretend you're okay." I almost couldn't breathe. And when I whispered back, "I'm so tired, Jack. I don't even recognize myself anymore," he reached out and simply held my hand. Nothing more. But that brief touch shattered the walls I'd built around myself. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat awake, trying to understand how I had gotten here. I loved Daniel, or at least, the version of him I married. But somewhere along the way, we had lost each other. And in that emptiness, someone else had found me. I thought about telling Daniel, not to hurt him, not even fully to confess, just so he would finally see me again. But there was always something in the way: school projects, groceries, work trips, a leaky faucet. Life never paused for emotional chaos. When I hinted, Daniel interpreted my sadness as stress. His solutions were always practical. Take a day off. Go out with Marissa. I'll watch the kids. He was trying, in his way, but he wasn't seeing me. Meanwhile, Jack's presence grew beyond Thursdays. A message now and then, a book quote, a question, a moment of shared humor. Seeing his name light up my phone made me feel awake again. Then, just as quickly, I would hide it like a guilty teenager. One afternoon, after dropping the kids at a birthday party, I sat alone in my car, staring at the dashboard, not wanting to go home to the endless cycle of chores and silence. Without thinking, I called Jack. "Are you free?" I asked, voice cracking. He was. We sat outside his apartment on a cold bench, drinking coffee, talking about everything and nothing. No pressure, just space to be messy, unfinished, human. I asked him once why he kept coming to a book club where he was outnumbered and often overlooked. Because, he said, every once in a while, someone says something real. And that's rare. I knew he meant me. And it terrified me. That night, lying next to Daniel, I thought about all we had built. 2 kids, 1 miscarriage, countless arguments, whispered dreams under warm covers. And yet, I felt oceans away from him. Loneliness in the closest proximity. It's a kind of heartbreak all its own. The guilt became unbearable. I started pulling away from Jack, answering less, leaving early, trying to fold myself back into the life I had, hoping that if I cut the cord quickly enough, I could salvage what was left. Jack noticed. One night after book club, he caught me in the parking lot. "Did I do something wrong?" he asked quietly. "No," I said. "It's not you. It's everything." He nodded. "I care about you. But if walking away helps, I'll respect that." I nodded, got in my car, and cried the whole way home. At home, everything was still. Daniel was working late. The kids were asleep. I stood in the kitchen, staring at a fridge cluttered with magnets and grocery lists, and wondered what I was even fighting for anymore. The next day, I asked Daniel if we could get away, just the 2 of us. He agreed, surprised but willing. We rented a small cabin in the mountains. No TV. Barely any cell service. Just us. At first, it was awkward. We didn't know how to talk without the routine of life to fill the gaps. But sitting by the fire, watching the flames dance, I finally said what I had been holding back for so long. "I don't know if we're happy anymore," I whispered. He stared at the fire for a long time before answering. "I've been afraid to ask that same question," he said. That night we talked. Really talked. About our dreams, our disappointments, our fears. About the way we had let life carry us without ever stopping to check if we were still walking hand in hand. Healing doesn't happen in a single conversation. But that night, sitting across from each other, not as parents or roommates or even spouses, but as two people honestly trying, we began to find our way back. Maybe not to who we were, but to who we could become.